I don't know how this beautiful blue wildflower planted itself in my yard, but it did, and it has been blooming all summer. So I pulled out some inks and some watercolors and I created this. Let me show you. I'm going to speed this up to about 400% so it doesn't take so long, but I'm basically just looking back and forth from my drawing to the photo I took of this chicory plant, and I'm just drawing basically what's in the photo as far as overlapping petals. They have these little softly jagged ends that I'm trying to replicate, and they have a lot of petals. Honestly, they look a little bit like daisies that are a little bit more cupped. And I'm just going to do that for all 3 flowers. So I looked at my reference photo trying to find out what chicory leaves look like, and there weren't any in the photo. So I went outside and I looked at the plant that is growing next to my driveway right now. And as it turned out, I could only find 1 leaf, and it was kind of this long, wiggly, irregular kind of shape. So I'm going to draw a bunch more leaves for this plant to kind of fill in around the edges. Probably more than this plant would really have in real life, but artistic license, it's all right. And I'm also going to draw some buds because I've noticed that chicory flowers do not last long at all before they fade, but they are always putting out new buds, so you always see bunches of flowers on them. So now that my pencil sketch is done, I'm just going to go over this with a pen. I'm using a micron pen in size 02, and this is one of my favorite pens right now. It's waterproof, which is really good since we're going to be going over this with some watercolor in a minute. And I'm not actually drawing everywhere that I drew in my pencil sketch. I'm just going over the lines kind of loosely, getting most of the petals in there, most of the leaves, but you'll notice I'm not going all the way around each of these shapes. I'm kind of breaking up my lines in some places, and that's just so it doesn't look like a coloring book page when I'm done. I want the lines to kind of be broken here and there so that it feels free-flowing. Now I'm going to erase all those lines because if they're underneath the watercolor, I'm never going to get them up later. And we can finally break out the paints. So I'm going to mix up some violet and ultramarine blue to make kind of a blue-purple color. And then I'm actually going to water this down a whole bunch so that it's not too dark. And I'm just going to start painting in the flowers, kind of based on my sketch. I'm going to try to make the center darker and these petals that are coming forward much lighter just to give them some definition. I'm also going to add some darker paint here and there to kind of show the folds in these petals because they're not perfectly flat. They have ridges through them, and that kind of helps create that sense of depth. I'm actually going to go in and paint some petals that I didn't draw in my pencil sketch. And this is just going to make the flowers look more full, and it's also going to help them look more loose, kind of going back to the idea of this not looking like a coloring page where everything's outlined. Chicory flowers are really bowl-shaped flowers. They're not flat like daisies, so I'm going to work to make these centers much darker than some of the outside petals. And one of the ways I'm going to do that is I'm going to start light, like I've done so far, but now I'm going to go ahead and add in some darker pigment to the centers and let that kind of fan out. So I mixed up this cool green paint that I'm going to use for the leaves. And I'm painting these in with a round brush because that makes it really easy to put more or less pressure on the brush to kind of get these wiggling shapes that these leaves have. This started out pretty light, so I'm actually going to get some more pigment on my brush and let that spread out. As I'm painting these flower buds, I'm leaving little highlights on them, which helps them have that classic watercolor look that's just super airy, and it also gives them more dimension, so they're going to look better that way. I'm also going to drop in some of this brighter green, and that will just give a little bit more color variation. Now that this is totally dry, I'm going to go back over these centers and add in the stamens. And the stamens of chicory flowers are surprisingly fun little curly shapes. So I'm going to have fun with this. Okay, that's it. I hope you guys had as much fun with this as I did. Thank you for joining me and watching all the way to the end of the video. If you liked it, if you would give it a thumbs up, that helps me continue to blog, and it means a lot to me. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a great week.